how two different elements coincide. The words of God through the prophet Achia Hashiloni and the political events led by Rechavam, the son of Shlomo HaMelech, who apparently is stubborn. Not only stubborn, but he seems to be weak in leadership qualities. He took the advice of the younger set of advisors, and that is to make things more difficult on the nation. The natural reaction to parts of the nation is, we're not going to listen to you, and therefore mutiny is proclaimed by people here in the Shomron in Shechem, and there are public statements that are made that are very similar to what we learned in the book of Samuel by Sheva ben Bichri, when he also made a rebellion against David. We have no portion of David, nothing to do with the son of Yishai. And this is happening in central Israel, in the mountain area. But let's see what's happening on the ranch in the cities of Yehuda. Is there a vacuum left open and anyone can take over? In verse 17, Uvnei Yisrael ha'yoshvim ba'arei Yehuda vayimloch aleim Rechavam. No, there's no vacuum left over. And if there was, Yehuda, by definition, the residents of the tribe of Yehuda are supporting Rechavam. It's natural. There's no one else to really support. And Rechavam indeed rules over them, tax collection, and so on and so forth. Now, when we learned yesterday, verse 18, and we saw the acts of further rebellion, or shall we say not accepting Rechavam's ruling by stoning the tax collector and killing him, okay, which is a clear expression of rebellion, as we say, well, there's a vacuum left open now in the Shomron. They're not accepting Rechavam. Who will they be accepting? Okay, and that we see now, what's happening now in verses 19 and 20. After the tax collector is stoned and killed, who's going to be ruling over them? So these political events are happening, and they happen to be the idea of God's plan. Hashem, already years ago, when Shlomo was alive, prophesied Achia ha-Shilonit, and told him that the kingdom will be divided into two, not during Shlomo's time, but during this time. Here are the political events that are happening, freedom of choice by political leaders, by public leaders, and yet it's the idea that God is behind all of this. Pasuk Yutet, let's continue from really where we left off yesterday. Vayifsha'u Yisrael b'veit David ad hayom hazeh. This goes on and on and on. People are not accepting the house of David. House of David means the children. The Vayifshu, Pesha, crime. Okay? The Pesha here means not criminal behavior, or you could call it criminal. We're talking here about rebellion. The rebellion, not accepting his laws, not accepting his ruling, not giving them honor. So it's spreading and spreading. So here we're going to learn now who is behind all this. He came, yeah. We said Naamah Ha'amonit. Naamah Ha'amonit, a Giorit from Ammon. Pasuk 20. Vayikishma kol Yisrael kishav Yerovam vayishlechu vayikru oto el ha'edah. Interesting term. Vayamlichu oto kol Yisrael lo haya acharei veit David zulati shevet Yehuda levado. Things just don't happen by the whim of a leader, but there must be public support. Here we see that people realize that a leader called Yerovam will add. He left Israel because there was the death penalty hovering over him. He found refuge in Mitzrayim. He played his cards in the proper way. He does have leadership qualities. He waits until he's called. Now he's in Israel. He's in Israel. When Israel hears, more and more people hear that Rechavam is around, they create what's called an Eidah. Usually, the word Ha'edah in the Tanakh refers to some sort of higher court, a high court, like a Sanhedrin. So here is a pseudo type of high court Sanhedrin. They come together and they say, we need a leader like Rechavam. Now remember if you remember what we said in the name of the Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin, he's a great scholar. He's so great that he has no lacking in his Torah study. He's like the number one scholar of the generation, which probably includes Yirat Shamayim as well. And because of his fear of heaven, he went ahead and criticized Shlomo Melech's policies. Yet he failed because he did it the wrong way. So we have good and not good mixed together. And here they put him they're rating him as king. If we look at the scoreboard right now, and we see that right now Rechavam is ruling over Kol Yisrael. By the way, don't be perturbed that the Tanakh says Kol Yisrael. Kol often means rov, a majority of Israel. As the Chazal say, Rubo Kechulo. A majority is like the entire situation. So here we have a very prominent situation. South of Yerushalayim and southbound, King David is ruling over Yehuda. We'll soon see that it includes Binyamin, but just because of the importance of Yehuda, Binyamin is swallowed up. Binyamin is behind the scenes. But yes, it'll be 2 tribes. But as far as the vast majority of Israel, 10 tribes, are supporting Rechavam. And now we're seeing the beginning of what's called the Pilug, the division of the kingdom of Israel. Exactly who prophesied? Achia Ashiloni. Pasuk Kavala, verse 21. Ken. Vayavo Rechavam Yerushalayim. Vayakel et kol Beit Yehuda v'et Shevet Binyamin 180,000 bachur osei milchama lilachem in Beit Yisrael lashiv et hamlucha leRechavam ben Shlomo. Well, Rechavam's policy is, if I can't get their support, I'll force them to support me.
They'll back down and surrender.
I'm going to force them. Now, Aleph, you and I know it's terrible, but he thinks there's still a chance that he can rule over all of the country like his Abba, Shlomo HaMelech, did. Now, remember that the backbone of the army of Israel, both qualitatively and quantitatively, comes from the tribe of Yehuda. He knows that, Rechavam, and therefore he thinks that maybe if he mobilizes so many forces, he's hoping that if they're not going to go to war, there's not going to be bloodshed, but Israel will see that they don't have a chance, and they'll just surrender their hearts to him. That is a matter. But another matter is that the other tribes may feel that we're left out. We were not mobilized in the past, maybe enough. Maybe this might be a time to be mobilizing. Nonetheless, there is no doubt that they don't want Shlomo Melech. I don't know if you're tax collector of the house of Yosef, it was even called Sevel, like it's being tortured. There's no doubt that if you mobilize 180,000 forces from Yehuda and Binyamin, tension is going to rise. And that's what's happening right now in Israel. So the question is, how will this be stopped? By the way, these are not just any soldiers, these are Bachur, meaning the most selected, the top units of the army from the tribe of Judah and some from Benjamin. So here we have a very tense situation. What do? Who can prevent it? Can anyone prevent it? Pasuk Avbet Vayidvar ha'Elohim el Shma'aya ish ha'Elohim lemor. Before we see the content, let's just note, so Shma'aya, we have a klal in the Talmud, or the Midrash in Eicha Rabbah, says any prophet that's mentioned and his abode, his place of residence is not mentioned, you should know that he's a Yerushalmi. Okay? Yirmiyahu was from Anatot. Okay? We know exactly where he's from. But here we're talking about Shmaya. Here he's nicknamed Ish HaElokim. If we look elsewhere in the Tanakh, we'll notice that he's called elsewhere as the word Navi himself. If you open up Divrei Yamim, Perek Yud Bet, you'll see his warning, as we're about to read. He's called Shmaya HaNavi. You might ask, where is the great prophet called Achia? Well, the prophecy we read about Achia and the tearing up of the garment, that happened a generation ago. That didn't happen a month ago, or a year ago, or 5 years ago, or so on. It happened quite a while ago. So it could very well be that Mr. Achia is a very old man prophet, and now this next generation, Shmaya is the more active prophet. And the question is, can he or not prevent civil war? Look at his command. Pasuk Kav Gimel. Emor el Rechavam ben Shlomo melech Yehuda. So it's clear that he's speaking to a group of people that does not include Rechavam, but rather these people should go ahead and speak to Rechavam. Furthermore, Vel Kol Beit Yehuda and Uvinyamin and the rest of the nation, V'yetaram lemor. So it's interesting that he's not really going and speaking to the present king, but some sort of public image, public assembly he's talking to. What is his command in the name of God? Pasuk of Dalet. Ko amar Adonai, lo talu velo tilachamun im achechem bnei Israel, shuvu ish leveito, ki meiti nihiya hadavar hazeh. Vayishmu et dvar Adonai vayeshuvu lelechet kidvar Adonai. Wow. The prophet Shemaiah is explaining that these events that have happened now over the last few months, or who knows how long, that have now seen a division of the kingdom, there's no need to get nervous. There's no need to force yourself over the 10 tribes and go to war and risk the spilling of blood. Why? Because the idea of 2 kingdoms is Hashem's plan. Forever, we're not talking about that now. We'll learn about that. We'll learn more about that, but it's going to be for a certain amount of time, till the time of Asa, the original plan. However, there's no need to go to war. Why? Because all of this is Hashem's plan. That meaning 10 tribes be under the ruling of Yerovam, and Shevet Yehuda from the house of David, together with Benjamin, be under the rule of this present King Rechavam. There's no need to be aggressive. No need to force yourself. Hashem doesn't want you, Rechavam, to rule all over Israel. This is a punishment to Shlomo, to Beit David. Hashem doesn't want anything else. So, is there or not common sense to Rechavam? What do we see here as the reaction? Let's read. Instead of reading about a reaction, we're told about Yerovam. Vayiven Yerovam et Shechem b'Har Ephraim, vayeshev ba, vayetzei misham, vayiven et Penuel. Very interesting. Here, the Tanakh, Sefer Melachim, is authored by Yirmiyahu the prophet. We're not told about adhering to this or not adhering, or does he do something else instead? We're told that Rechavam is working in the Department of Housing. He's developing the city of Shechem in the mountain of Ephraim. He's there, meaning he's making Shechem his capital city. And he's building a place called Pinuel. Do you remember where Pinuel is, gentlemen?
It was in the river.
Over the river. On the other side of the Jordan River, we have a place called Pinuel.
So the face of Hashem is where Yaakov.
Very good, very good. So we see here, part of the 10 tribes are the tribe of Reuven. It's likely they're the tribe of Reuven. And so we see that Rechavam is very powerful, takes resources, builds up Shechem. Opposite Shechem on the other side, maybe even a little further south, is Pinuel. So he's developing Eretz Yisrael. Sounds great. What's Rechavam doing? Let's open up to Divrei Yamim Bet. Divrei Yamim Bet, chapter Yud Aleph, chapter 11. And let's see what Rechavam is doing. Again, Divrei Yamim Bet, Perek Yud Aleph. Look at the beginning of the chapter. Here we see the words of Hashem to Shmaya. Okay? Like we see here. Lotalo, don't go up and fight. Shuvush lebeito, all this is from God. And I'm sorry, I didn't include what we in verse 24 by us. I made a mistake here. It does say that they listened to the words of Hashem and they went back home. I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. So it says clearly that Rechavam demobilized his soldiers, everyone went back. And now let's see something positive that Rechavam is doing. Pasuk Hey, verse 5, here in the chapter. Vayeshev Rechavam b'Yerushalayim. Obvious, he's living in the capital city. Vayiven arim lematzor b'Yehuda. You never know when we're going to be attacked. And therefore there's need to fortify cities. Where does he do it? Of course, in his own region, the Judean cities. He's now building fortified cities to protect the Jews there. For instance, verse 6, Vayiven et Beit Lechem vet Eitam vet Tekoa. Beit Lechem, fortified, build that city. Tekoa, east of Beit Lechem. Vet Beit Tzur vet Socho vet Adulam. Now he's going west in the Judean area, next to the area of Beit Shemesh. Okay? Socho, we heard about. That's where the war, David against Goliath, happened. We know where Adulam is next to Beit Shemesh. All these are the western low hills of the Judean area. Furthermore, now he goes south. Verse Chet. Vet Gat, vet Maresha, vet Zif. Gat is in the lower land region. Zif is more in the Judean desert. Vet Adorayim, vet Lachish, vet Azeka. Okay, that too in the area of Kiryat Gat and back in Azeka, where the war of David and Goliath was really at, in Azeka. Vet Tzorah is next to Beit Shemesh. Vet Ayalon is the lower area. Vet Chevron. Exactly. Vet Asher Biyuda uBeBinyamin Arei Mitzurot. So, gentlemen, Rechavam the king is very busy. He is developing towns and cities in the Judean area. Sounds very positive, doesn't it? So, some sense was knocked into his mind. The prophet stopped him. And instead of mobilizing forces to kill fellow Jews, he's building the land of Israel, which is a great, great virtue. Okay?
He's building, he's fortifying the city.
Right.
So he's like preparing that the other people will come against him.
Right. I don't see a sign here that it's fear of civil war. I think it could be that you never know. We're no longer in Shlomo's time. In Shlomo's time, there was really peace. Who knows what's going to cook up in Yerusha, in Mitzrayim, if they might come and attack us? Who knows who may come in, Assyria, Babylon, etc. He's thinking of the future. I don't think per se he has to think about a civil war. We don't see now that Yerovam is an aggressor and he wants to fight. We didn't see that whatsoever. So it's likely that he's developing the country and protecting them against foreign enemies. I just don't see a sign of that. Pasuk Yud Aleph, verse 11, Vayechazek et ha-mitzurot. What are mitzurot?
The fortified cities.
That's usually the word mitzudot. So maybe it's written two different ways, mitzurot and mitzudot. He's strengthening the fortified cities, it could be. Vayten lem nigidim, he gives them governors, tax collectors. Votzrot machal, feeds them. Shemen, yain, staple products like wheat, oil, and wine. Notice it's not Coca-Cola. Pasuk Yud Bet. Uvechol ir ve'ir tzinot u'remachim. He supplies each city with weapons. Vayichaskem l'arbei meod. Vayilo Yuda u'Benyamin. Like a summary. So we see here that Rechavam is doing a lot of good things, protecting the Judean cities, fortifying them, giving them weapons, providing them food. He's doing good things. Say there. Let's go back to our parak. Pasuk Kaf Vav. Okay. One point I want to make over here. We saw some craziness here by Rechavam to impose by force tax collecting. To even though it was not accepted, he sent him back to do tax collecting. He's made several mistakes. The last mistake he made, thank God he was saved. Thank God he was saved from going to civil war. And that is to his that's to his credit. He's doing something very positive. He overcomes, he restrains, he doesn't go to war. Instead of going to war against brothers, he listens to the prophet. A lot of people are not capable of doing that. People that are high in power, that their egos are swelling their minds and their faces, to restrain and not go ahead with their plans is a great attribute. He restrains himself. That's number one. Number two, we see here great wisdom. Instead of doing terrible things, he, with concerted efforts, he goes ahead and builds Eretz Yisrael. Okay? He is maybe widening the borders, he's strengthening the cities. His mamlacha, his kingdom, which is lacking, it's only he and the tribe of Binyamin. We see here a certain light that he's brought down from Shlomo Melech and David HaMelech. We remember that if you want to be a positive king, a successful king, you have to have modesty. You have to have modesty. You don't start talking about this and talking about that, and my finger is larger than his father's waist. Certainly we see that Rechavam is not like his grandfather David. David, who acted with the nation of God, with the people of Israel, he acted with modesty. He acted with humility. Okay? Remember, David said, when he was to be anointed as king, he said, Mi anochi, who am I? Okay? Umi beiti, where my house is not an important house that I've been brought to this level to become king. David was really an Eved of Hashem. He was an Eved of Hashem. Okay? By the way, Rav Kook, when he was the chief rabbi of Israel, what was his signature? Avram Yitzchak, didn't write the word Rav. Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, Eved La'am Yisrael. I'm a servant to the nation of Israel. He served Israel. His hours, day and night, serving Israel were amazing. On the other hand, Shlomo Melech saw that his role is not only a national role as king, but rather he is able to rise to higher levels to bring international support. However, he was able to win the support of the nation. Shlomo Melech, with his wisdom, with his judgment in court cases and so on and so forth, he was able to judge Israel favorably, and he brought the kingdom to Israel to a new ideal, to a new level. Okay? For the first time, Israel has such a high level of rulership, but also a national, religious, social, economic life in Israel has reached a new height. Okay? But what happens when good parts of the nation don't want you as king? Okay? They just get out of it. They're not interested. Here, Rechavam showed us that he didn't have the tzniut, the modesty, the anava that his father or grandfather had. Okay? So now, what we're going to have to learn about from now on is, how do these two kingdoms coexist? What will be the objective of Yerevam? There's a kingdom next door in Yerushalayim and Yehuda. I'm here in the mountains of Ephraim, Beit El, Shiloh, Eli, and Maleh Levona, and all these areas. What will be the plan of Yerevam? How will he go forward? Is there any place to look historically? This is a precedent. We've never ever had two Jewish kingdoms coexist at the same time. It sounds like it's a formula for Balagan. Okay? Why? Because how do you promote unity? How do you promote brotherhood? How will there be affinity in between tribes? How do we do this? So let's see what the plan is for Yerevam. Pasuk Kavav, we'll start it today. Vayomer Yerevam belibo ata tashuva mamlacha leveit David. The fear of Yerevam is that the entire kingdom of Israel, is that a sign for King David to wake up in the middle of the night? Is it? Okay. Are we sleeping, getting up? So now the fear of Yerevam is what? Tashuva mamlacha lebeit David. Beit David, remember the lineage, the house, the grandson of David in this case. What will happen? How will it return to Beit David? Everyone go? Next. Im ya'aleh amazeh לעשות זבחים בבית אדוני בירושלים ושב לב העם הזה אל אדוניהם אל רחבעם מלך יהודה והרגוני ושבו אל רחבעם מלך יהודה. Yerevam is sharp, very wise, and he seems to be a shrewd political leader. He says here, well, things are not going to remain two kingdoms if my fellow members of my tribes all over northern Israel make the pilgrimage to Yerushalayim 3 times a year. Let's just think. We love, they see street signs in Yerushalayim. We love Rechavam. Join Rechavam. Join our nation. Join our kingdom. People are going to be swayed. They're going to be persuaded. Okay? And therefore he thinks, what should I do? How can I, and this is God's will, that my kingdom, which is God's will through the prophet, continues to be prolonged and prolonged and prolonged. I must stop something, meaning stop the fellow Jews of coming up to Jerusalem to bring their korbanot. Because, what?
He's not asking Hashem.
You're right. Here, he's not asking Hashem. So this point we're going to have to develop and understand, because he's going to be ousted out of office or even assassinated. Varaguni. People are going to kill me. And then they're going to go to support Rechavam. So we'll start with this and see what great idea he has in his own opinion, halachically. Okay? He's going to think, I have a chidush, a novelty, and this is probably Hashem's will and desire to build 2 shrines to serve God. One next to Yerushalayim in Beit El, and the other for the Tzvonim, for the northern Jews, next to the tallest mountain in Israel called the Hermon. For this and more in our next shiur.